It is one scorcher of a day in North Louisiana and probably anywhere within hundreds of miles of here, I suspect. Rumors of a stalled out front just to our north. We're getting south wind. We got a shot of rain this week, like an inch the other day. Basically just enough to keep everything alive. But I thought I might do a little video about some of the differences between paragliding and paramotoring. The dog's gonna scratch at the door the whole time, it seems. I better let him out. He can hear me talking out here. You know, I once thought that they were practically the same thing, but you know, boy, was I wrong. They're not the same thing. And they told me that, the people I asked. I was like, so just how different is it? They said completely different. I didn't quite believe them. Not wholeheartedly, but then I'll figure it out. And I realized pretty quick they were right. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of overlap. If you can do one, the transition to the other one isn't a huge leap. I started with motors some 9 years ago now. Hey, oh, don't start, I'll let you out. What I have in my life is lots and lots and lots of paramotor footage where I'm flying paramotors. I would consider myself a high-level paramotorist. But for paragliding, you know, I'm advanced, I'm an advanced student, and I never really see myself going beyond that. To say you're a professional or you're the best or anything like that. I mean, there are a few guys out there that's got it, but you know, there's only one Kriegel. He's like the Michael Jordan of paragliding, right? But these things are different, and we want to approach them differently. You know, you're dealing with Mother Nature. If you're doing real paragliding in the winds, in the thermals, you know, you're dealing with nature, and you got to be able to read nature is the first thing. How much noise can the little dog make? Drop it, Bandit. Get back, get back, get back. What a goofus. But what I don't have is a lot of footage of me actually doing paragliding. I've done a lot of it. I've not done a lot of it lately. I mean, I just went on this vacation and got some well-needed R&R and some real free flight in, you know, some dune soaring. It was first time I ever soared dunes. And so there's some things that I learned about that, and pros, cons, we're gonna talk about it. Thanks to Josh and Aaron and Jason and anybody else who took, you know, footage of me. Because I'm not worried about filming my own stuff. Like, I'm out there, I really like to focus on just the task at hand and what I'm doing, and I don't like to be distracted a whole lot by making a video of the whole situation. But if somebody would film me, like I gave this camera to Josh, for example. I was like, hey man, would you just video my launch? I mean, I didn't expect him to video the whole thing, didn't really care. But since he did, I thought we might just look at it and talk about it and see if we can learn some things that are a little different about paragliding versus paramotoring. You know, paragliding is supposed to be a ballet. You're supposed to be in control, doing it right. The people that are doing it right, they really make it look good. And practicing in wind is something that you gotta do. If you're gonna be good at paragliding, you gotta practice in wind. And the dune offers a really nice place to do that. Like, you can take some lumps and thumps on the dunes, and I actually did that as a practice. Again, something I didn't film. I was out there in like a 25-mile-an-hour wind on a 15-meter speed wing, and I just sort of let the thing bounce me around just to get a feel for getting pounded into the sand, I guess. I wasn't trying to control the glider necessarily. I was just letting it drag me around and up the hill. You know, dunes allow for that. You know, I kind of discovered it on accident. I was coming in for a side hill landing, and I was gonna just sort of slide it in, but when I hit the sand, it made this really nice, you know, it just cushioned the blow. And my feet sunk in, and I was immediately planted into the sand. I was just like, well, I'm gonna explore this. You make me crazy, dog. You're making me crazy. Anyway, let's talk about this video. I'm gonna switch this to the inside before I really start sweating. One of the more notable differences between paramotor and paragliding is paragliding you usually have to hike. A lot of the places that I travel to around this fine world, you have to hike, and some of the places are big. I mean, look at the size of this dune. You can see the stairs in the background here of this selfie I took. I wasn't walking up and down the stairs, you're walking up and down the dune, which made for like extra difficult hiking situations. And then every now and then there was like a distant walk. Like, for example, this shoreline here. You got to walk about a half mile down there to get to the launch. And then this is actual, the launch, the dune. The pictures don't do it justice. A lot steeper. For example, here's a picture where I flew over a dune, and you can kind of see just the magnitude of how big some of these are. Now, this is one of the bigger ones, a famous one called Sleeping Bear. Now, Sleeping Bear and this one here, Greenpoint, these were two dunes that you could actually drive to the top with an automobile, and that is the case in some situations. You don't always have to hike, but with paramotoring, you almost never have to hike. You always launch basically where you park, but with free flight, things are a little different. Now, anybody that's seasoned knows that if you're getting ready in a strong wind condition, I've actually got my glider just out of frame here, I'm clipping in and sorting my lines and getting everything ready to go back behind the dune so that I'm not doing it in the wind and having the wind tangle the works, so to speak. With this big two-liner glider, it's a high aspect ratio, which means it's as long and skinny. And so the tips want to catch wind and fly nonstop, and I've got some video of that coming up. But the winds were howling in about 20 miles an hour, and so I did all my getting ready kind of back in the wind shadow behind the dune. And then I carried my gear down the hill, which is what I'm doing in this photo here. And once I get to a spot where the wind has lowered it to appropriate level, that's where I'm going to do my layout and launch. So once I make it out to the spot here, I'm going to find the center of my glider. Now I've already clipped in, I know how I'm orientated with the lines, but I thought it might be good just to watch this in real time because the setup, the layout, the inflation, this is where everything really matters. See, I'm grabbing the tips here, and I'm trying to wrangle them down. The wind, it just wants to take the tips and blow them away, and your glider can really get out of control if you don't maintain control of the glider, even if that control means setting it down on the ground. Also, I'm getting my electronics going. It looks like right here I'm turning on my music, and then the Vario, I'm going to set the Vario so that it plays sound. Got my beeps going. There's just a lot of, I guess you would call it like a backswing when you're doing free flight. You know, the harness and all this stuff is good, but it's all the extra things. See, I'm just getting it sorted here. What am I doing? I'm trying to see if the Vario's making noise by moving it up and down. That's what I'm doing there. If I get it beeping, then I know it's working. So next I'm going to clear my controls and get everything in my hand. Again, I just want to take my time and make sure that I do it right. There's no hurry here. The wind's cranking in. You don't want to rush these things and end up launching with a tangled brake line. Make sure it's right. I'll probably double check it again. Also, look how I'm climbing down the hill. Notice how much my feet sink in the dirt. It's also very steep, so you know, you're not real nimble and agile whenever it's soft, sandy dirt like this. That's something I noticed about the dune. Of course, using the wing to kite up the dune does give you a little bit of advantage. But once I'm down here, I just want to make sure that my lines are sorted, that my glider's trying to take off. I don't think I did it on this launch. There was a couple launches, and I think I got a video of one where I actually used some of the loose sand and throw up on the glider just to keep the ass end of it down where it's not trying to buck up like it is here. And you see here I'm making sure that my brakes are clear. I'm giving it a double check, getting my A's in my hand, looking at the surroundings, and I'm just going to commit to the inflation. I got the center there. I know that the tips are clear. The glider tries to come up. Yeah, and it comes up, inflates, everything opens. I turn and burn, and I'm out of there. The wind does the rest for me. I can relax and focus on my flight. All the pre-flight stuff was done ahead of time. Not that it's vastly different than getting ready with the motor, but it is a bit different. I do take a bit more time and care to make sure that everything is appropriate before I do a free flight. Now here's an example of where the glider is trying to roll up on itself and it's just becoming unruly. And so this is the one where I actually take the sand and throw down on the tips of the glider. I'm not trying to fill the sails with it, obviously, but I want to maybe, see, it just rolls up into a spring roll. You pull it up and it's just in a big fat mess, and you got to immediately start undoing tangles after the launch. So I'm already clipped in. My backswing is more or less done at this point. It's just about the glider layout and the control. I want the center to come up and I want the tips to follow. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just planting down the tips on this wing. And this isn't as bad with like more of a beginner style wing. This is an E&D glider, high aspect ratio. Look how hard it is to maneuver in the sand. Even walking up the hill and grabbing the tips, things are different. And again, the wind's coming in 20 miles an hour plus at least, slightly cross. You can see the glider just wants to take off. But I got some dirt on the tips now. As long as the tips will stay down, I'm okay. But you can see just how unstable I am on my feet, kind of tripping and falling over in this steep, soft sand. I mean, it's very forgiving as far as taking an impact, but it's also very difficult to move in. So I'm walking down the hill, and again, the glider, it just wants to go. I got the old rat's nest there I got to undo. And again, this is just the nature of unsheathed lines. It's something that you have to deal with. It's not a detriment so much as it's just part of the procedure. You know, if I notice a tangle, you got to stop and address it. And it's really, really helpful to know what you're looking for and looking at. It looks like a tip came loose right there on the left tip. The right side is still held down by my sand anchor. But I think I'm going to be able to do it. I know what the glider looks like. I know the situation. All I got to do is do a nice controlled inflation, and it'll take care of the rest. What I don't want is to pull the glider up and there to be a big fat knot in one side or another. So the quick abort is also a good option to have in the back pocket. If things are coming up and it's not right, or you got a bow tie or something like that. Again, look, I'm just taking my time, making sure that all my brakes are clear and all my lines are clear, so that I'm not going to have a post-launch issue where I have some sort of control problem. I just want to take the necessary time to make sure it's right. And that's the big lesson here. You obviously want to do that when you're doing motors, but especially if you're doing free flight. So here we go with the inflation. My lines are good. I'm clipped in proper. I'm just trying to get some air in the sails of the wing. I got one part of it showing. As long as you can get air in some of it, it'll fill up the rest. And then boom, here I'm centered. I'm going to come on up with the wing. I see the tips are open and I'm off. And everything's good and I'm happy. Even though it kind of snatch launched me, I'm in control and everything is good. And I had a good flight on this one. And just to show you a third one, this is a lighter wind launch. This one, again, the layout, I don't really have to anchor it down with sand or anything. It's not honking in. In fact, I'm waiting on a little breeze just so I can actually get the wing to come up and take a little air. I see it's good, and then basically a cliff launch. It's a little sloped, but wasn't much wind this day. It was just a sledder down to the bottom. But I wanted to show you that as well. Techniques vary, just like with motor. You know, high wind, low wind. You got different techniques, even if you're doing forwards, high wind forward versus a no wind forward. Vastly different on the inputs and the timing. Same thing with paragliding. Something you want to practice and be proficient at. This was in no way supposed to be a comprehensive differences between paragliding and paramotoring, but they are vastly different. You know, even with the same wing, same pilot, the places you're doing it, the way you access them, the skill levels that's required, you know, everything is just different. And some people do both. Some people pick one or another. And if you don't live near a mountain or have a tow operation available, you know, motoring's the way to go. But sometimes you do both. It's a fun way. I like to do them both. That's just me. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you soon in the next one. What's up? Kyle out.